So one day you're on YouTube and you type in Halloween and you start scrolling through it. All of a sudden you see these houses and they have special miniature movies projected onto them. Or maybe they're for Christmas or some other holiday. Or they may be projecting on some pumpkins or a piece of cloth in their Halloween haunt front yard. What in the world are these people doing? Well, what they're doing is projection mapping. Now, the projection part is actually fairly simple. They're using a projector, very similar to the one you might find in an office conference room. But what about the mapping part? What is projection mapping? That's exactly what we're going to take a look at today. Let's start off by looking at a projection that's not mapped. This is just a guy standing in front of a projector. If we wanted to project, let's say, on his face, we got several problems here. The first thing is that you can see the projection all around him on the wall, and there's this big shadow over there too. We may not want that. So the first thing we want to do is kind of make sure there's no spillover, that our projection doesn't go beyond what we're trying to project on. The second is, if you look at the numbers very carefully across his neck, you'll notice that they go uphill and then they kind of go straight for a little while, but then they go back downhill. And that's because the projector is actually projecting on a curved surface and creating that kind of uphill, downhill effect. Let's say we wanted to make this look flat like a movie screen on his face. Well, we'll need to correct all of these sorts of problems. And that's the exact sort of thing that you do when you're projection mapping. Now, on a house, oftentimes the surfaces are flat, but occasionally you need to project at an angle, or perhaps your garage is sticking out farther than the rest of the house, and you want to adjust for that. And so those are the sorts of things that we're going to be doing with projection mapping. We're going to adjust the video projection to fit our house or pumpkins or whatever else we're doing perfectly. Let's take a look at one of the most important skills of projection mapping, and that is masking. A mask is basically a stencil, and you're going to apply it over the top of your videos, and so that way only certain portions can be seen. You remember our guy standing in front of the projector? He had a bunch of spillover. You could see the video all around him on the walls. We want to get rid of that. And so one of the very first things you're going to do is you're going to create a mask for the outline of your house if you're going to projection map your house. So let's take a look at how those work. Let's say this is your house, and this is the exact angle the projector sees your house. What we're going to do is we're going to create a mask, or again, like a paper cutout that goes all the way around the outside of the house. That way we can make that part all black, which means the projector is going to project black there, which means there won't be any light spilling over onto your neighbors or onto the fence or the tree next to the house or anything like that. Now, of course, we're not going to just keep your house here in the picture. What we're going to do is we're going to put our video projections inside of this mask. And as you're going to see later on, we're going to add additional masks, and each element of the video will be behind its own mask. And that mask might let the video show through your door or a window or on the garage and things like that. So you break your house down into individual masks, starting though with the big outline mask. So besides the outline mask, we're also going to create masks for every area that we want to project onto. Maybe the lower windows, maybe the upper windows, the siding, maybe the garage door. And then we're going to layer everything. We're going to put videos and then a mask and videos and a mask until we finally build up to the effect that we want. This layering of mask and videos and maybe even special effects is all called compositing. It's just layering all these elements on top of each other until again we get the exact video that we want to project on our house. Now let's talk about some common corrections that you might have to do when mapping your house. One of the very first ones is that you can't place the projector straight on with the surface that you want to project on. Instead, you need to place it at an angle. So if we project this pattern here onto this slanted garage, this is the effect we're actually going to get. Notice that the pattern is much smaller on the left side than the right side. And that's because the right side is farther away from the projector. And anything farther away from the projector is going to get bigger and bigger as the light expands as it comes out of the projector. So to map this, we would actually have to warp the image so the right side is actually smaller in order to compensate for the expansion of the projector. Here we have a new challenge. The balcony in this house is much closer, and the distant wall is much farther away. So anything projected on that distant wall is going to appear much larger. So what we'll end up with is actually our pattern will have two sides. One is kind of the normal scale that you would want, and the other one is going to be much smaller in order to compensate again for the expansion of the video image that comes out of the projector. Finally, if you need to map to something that's round, like the bottom of this wedding cake, you're going to need a warp called a Bezier warp, and it actually allows you to curve the edges in order to match the round shape. So that's your whirlwind introduction to what is projection mapping. We skipped over a lot of the details, made it really simple, didn't get into how you do any of this stuff, but I just wanted to kind of convey what projection mapping is, and hopefully you have a better idea of that now. Thank you for watching.